Hi, and welcome to the Skincarma Pod. I'm Carmine, the creator and voice of the Skincarma blog. With more than 25 years in beauty as a brand builder, copywriter, and skincare junkie, I'm putting my product wisdom and expertise to work demystifying skincare. Today's episode of the Skincarma Pod is about one of my favorite topics in the world of beauty, sunscreen, but specifically a breakthrough that's been more than 2 decades in the making. My guest is Carl D. Ruiz, a regulatory and scientific affairs leader at dsm-firmenich, and a key figure behind the FDA's proposed order to add a new UV filter to the U.S. sunscreen monograph. Remarkably, it would be the first new sunscreen added to the handful of approved filters in a generation. The story behind it is part hard science, part public policy, and part pure endurance. I'm excited to talk to Carl about why the US has lagged so far behind the rest of the world and how he ultimately overcame years of obstacles, shifting goalposts, endless rules changes, and FDA uncertainty to get PARSOL Shield over the finish line and into the US sunscreen monograph and ultimately onto store shelves. So let's get to it. Let's talk to Carl. Carl, hi.
Hey, Carmine, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, I'm super excited. I'm so happy that and honored that you agreed to come on because I can wonk out on sunscreen filters all day. So,
Tell
and,
me about it. I'm wearing some sunscreen right now, so it's kind of,
and you're in
I'm in the
Flagstaff.
desert.
You need to double up.
It's very sunny here, and you
Yeah.
really need to dab it on.
And actually, it's really sunny behind me right now, but as you know, that can be misleading because it's super, super cold out right now, 22 degrees. I have yet to go outside today. I need to go outside.
Well, if it's that cold, I wouldn't go.
I don't know. I want some fresh air, and I'm loath to open the windows. The cat would be thrilled if I opened the windows, but that's not happening. All right, Carl, before we jump into your decades long project, I'd like you to share who you are. I know you're in Flagstaff. I don't know. Do you hail from Flagstaff? Did you grow up in
No,
Flagstaff?
no, actually, I'm in Scottsdale, not Flagstaff.
Oh, Scottsdale.
Flagstaff would
Okay.
be, yeah. So it's a lot warmer here. It's snowing in Flagstaff. Well, not yet, but they have a lot colder. It's 8,000 feet elevation.
Yikes.
No, I'm originally a New Yorker. I grew up in the Bronx. So
Whoa,
I'm a city
hardcore.
boy. I definitely, am hardcore to the bone. And but I've lived pretty much all over the U.S. in terms of Washington, D.C., North Carolina, Arizona, Atlanta, Connecticut, and now New Jersey.
Well,
So
full disclosure, I grew up in Connecticut. I was born in Connecticut and grew up in Connecticut, and I got out at 17. It
all right, yeah, no, Connecticut's pretty cool.
was
The
cool.
shoreline's very
It was
nice.
cool, but I was LA. I was bound for LA. So I want to talk about your career trajectory before we get to where you've landed. I assume you didn't always want to be an expert in regulatory and scientific affairs. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
I wanted to be a doctor, just like my mother wanted me to be.
Wow. Okay.
Or an astronaut as well. Those are
Hmm.
kind of one and two. But yeah, so growing up like as I did, I want to be a doctor. So actually, I am doing what I wanted to do
You really
because
are.
it was pretty interesting in terms of my education at the point in time where it all came together. I was looking at medicine and I was looking at health
Hmm.
and I was looking at ways to make a difference in terms of reducing health issues in Americans. And I said, well, prevention seems to have a lot more of a umph than treating people after they get sick. So if you prevent them from getting sick, then now you're really doing something that's meaningful. And so I'm a graduate of Fordham University, and
Hmm.
then I was it was funny because I was working at Citibank as a full part-time platform sales associate when I wasn't taking classes. And at the time, I had one decision to make once I graduated. So do I continue to go in banking or do I do something different? And I did something different. I applied to one school I applied to Yale School of Medicine, and they had a program in public health, which I created my own kind of diversified plan with the School of Law, the School of Business, and the School of Medicine, looking at risk assessment, toxicology, and health impact and environmental impacts of chemicals on safety. And I wound up with a master's, and and that degree, and at the time, that was emerging as the thing in terms of toxicology and risk assessment in the mid '80s, and then I got a job with the Environmental Protection Agency regulating chemicals.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that was fun because it gave me a whole new outlook in terms of how the government operates, and did some pretty cool things in terms of stratospheric ozone depletion, in terms of banning chlorofluorocarbons, chlorinated solvents, which make a hole in the ozone layer and jeopardize health. And then I got to work on a variety of other things with the agency in terms of how they manage, priorities and strategies across the country and the 10 different regions that they manage, and did some pretty interesting work there. And then, I wasn't cut out to be a government employee all my life, a little impatient in terms of decision making. So I wound up getting I wound up, it was like, hold the horse. And I couldn't hold on. So I got a job with this great company called Ciba-Geigy, and they were a global pharma, chemical, islands, pesticide company, which were based in Switzerland. And I got to see the world through, a global conglomerate for 12 years, where I did regulatory affairs, compliance to manufacturing, product safety for drug and cosmetic products, as well as, textiles and pigments and stuff like that. And that kind of opened up my eyes to, how you make things, how they impact, individuals and in the environment. And then I moved on after 12 years there, and kind of did something with consumer products, working at Dial Henkel here in Scottsdale, and that's why I'm still here now, not permanently, but at least at this moment in time. And I work with antimicrobial agents in terms of OTC drugs and the cosmetic products, and looked at some interesting technologies associated with the prevention of common colds, and did an FDA drug application looking at a specific technology which reduced the symptoms of the common cold.
Oh, wow.
And then I moved on there, and I did something crazy. I worked in tobacco, looking at e-cigarettes and the first generation of e-cigarettes. And I assembled all the clinical studies and safety data to demonstrate that, they were a harm reduction alternative to combustible cigarette smoking. And that set up the foundation for the vaping category as a whole, which FDA has now adopted as an alternative to tobacco cigarette, which has tar and combustion byproducts, carcinogens. And then, the company was sold, and I went with it, and then I wound up back in the cosmetic drugs industry, which I was in for a very long time, and worked again on sunscreens. I had been working with sunscreens in terms of Ciba-Geigy and Ciba, which it doesn't exist anymore. But that continued in terms of work that I had started there with regards to the two new molecules that were introduced in in the late 1990s, and that were approved globally starting in the year 2000. And then I submitted the applications for FDA to have them incorporate them on the monograph back in 2005.
And these are UV filter molecules.
Yeah, they're basically the same filter, one of the same filters that currently is being proposed. It's a tinnis. Well, at the time, it was known chemically as bemotrizinol, and currently with DSM, it's called PARSOL Shield. But that information supporting its safety was submitted in 2005, and
20 years ago.
Nothing happened. Nothing. I mean, FDA didn't have a mandate in terms of review times or, indicating exactly what tests were required. So we submitted all the information in terms of where it was used, 5 years continuously globally. And they said, well, it's eligible, but now you have to submit safety data. And we submitted safety data, and then we sat on that for a while. And it kind of got, industry wasn't, there were about 7 other filters that were also introduced as potential additions to the monograph. And nothing happened. So industry went to Congress and said, hey guys, can you do something about this? And they said, yeah. And they implemented what's called the Sunscreen Innovation Act. And at that time, what that meant that was mandating FDA to, one, provide guidance to industry so they can know exactly what is it that you require for OTC sunscreen UV filters to be approved as generally recognized as safe and effective. And that was based upon the recommendations of what's called the Non-Prescription Drug Advisory Panel, which FDA convenes every now and then to advise them on matters such as this. So they went forward, they mandated FDA to do that, and they also mandated review timelines in terms of, well, FDA, you have to review those TEAs that have been sitting around for a while, which you said were eligible by such and such a date. And they did. And they also implemented in 2016, the GRASE guidelines, right? And then everybody looked at them and goes, you got to be crazy. This is this is a very high hurdle for ingredients that have already been approved globally.
Right.
By not using, animal tests and not going as far as they did with regards to all the different types of studies that were required. And then basically nothing happened. Everybody said, well, this is something that is going to be too expensive, it's going to take too much time, and there's no really return on investment since these are OTC active ingredients, which then become USP grade, United States Pharmacopoeia, and then are pretty much commodities after that point in time, since as long as everybody can meet the quality and purity standards of USP, then they can sell it as USP grade. So nothing happened, crickets. Meanwhile, FDA kept on going and developed a guidance for maximum usage trials in humans because they did some studies showing that there was absorption above a certain limit, which they believe additional testing is required on existing filters. And that was a 0.5 nanograms per mil in terms of what penetrates your skin and winds up into your blood, and indicated, well, this is the guidance for now conducting those types of tests to ascertain whether or not you're within or below or above that limit, which we now prescribe as an additional test. So
when was that? When did that happen?
That was so that was 2018.
Right, I remember that. That's when the latest scare about sunscreen filters being absorbed and entering your bloodstream came. Right.
Yeah, they published that in JAMA and did an off-the-shelf survey, clinical study on, and then the guidance was put out.
Yeah.
So by that time, everything was in place with regards to what's required. So 2018, from the point in time that they initiated the TA in 2005, and we went through the Congressional, Act of Sunscreen Innovation Act. And at that point in time, well, dsm-firmenich hired me to come and finish the job that I started back in 2005. And I was more than happy to do that since, I have a place in my heart for these types of preventative products, which, especially if they prevent morbidity and mortality in terms of cancer. And we met with the agency, and they were very pleased to see us and said, well, we said, well, here are the gaps that we acknowledge as you're indicating need to be filled, and this is the approach we want to take. And they said, cool. What you got to do is this is an unapproved drug, so you have to put together an investigational new drug application and submit stuff to what's called the electronic common technical document and have all the protocols reviewed by us. And as we move through this, we gather the data, which will let us make a GRASE determination, generally recognized safe. And we did that. We went on our way. We started in 2018. And then in 2020, we're changing the goalposts again. The game is changing again. So we went from the Sunscreen Innovation Act to the CARES Act OTC monograph user fee program, right? And this changed everything. So overnight, we went from, well, I thought we were going to get approved as an IND under SIA, and no, that didn't happen. Now you got to go through the OTC monograph order request program, OMAR, Tier 1, which is a fee-based program, right? And I go, well, we thought we were done in 2023 in terms of all the data that we had compiled. Now we have to resubmit everything that was electronically submitted previously under a new FDA portal, under the requirements of the OMAR documentation submission requirements, and we have to pay a $537,000 review fee.
$500,000.
$500,000 to review the data, which they already had, in their possession. So at this time, we said, well, this is really important. dsm-firmenich made a commitment. Okay, we've really gone this far. We've done all the clinical testing that was required. We've done all the dermal safety tests. The clinical tests we designed in a way that estimated that threshold level that they established in terms of the must studies below 0.5 nanograms per mil, and we lowered it to 0.1.
This is the absorption of the molecule?
The absorption,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So, and we showed there's basically no absorption, right?
Right.
And clinically, in both, we had to do several steps of studies, in vitro, and you go to a pilot study, then you go to full clinical. And we did the clinicals during COVID, right? Which was a nightmare because, one, it was COVID and you had restrictions in terms of people, congregating,
right.
For a study. Secondly, we did the study in Wisconsin. And if you're going to do, a study that's supporting OTC drugs, that means you have to have a fairly representative segment of the population of the U.S., which means different racial groups, skin types, ethnicities, blah, blah, blah. And Wisconsin, as you know, is not that hotbed of, having a lot of different diversity. So we had to import people from Chicago and really, do an extra measure to get this done. But we got it done. FDA was very pleased. That study was so effective that it eliminated the need to do what they call systemic carcinogenicity study, which would have been a big animal study, taking 2 more years. So, given that there was no absorption, I mean, what are you worried about? So, we filed in September 2024 the OMAR. We paid the fee.
Right.
That began the review period, right? The review period is 17.5 months under the new OMAR Tier 1 process. So then we kind of had a couple of meetings. During that process, we had to submit 150 answers to 150 questions to FDA because, they wanted to know everything in terms of detail and with the review. So we did that. We had to repeat an efficacy study because we did it in Europe, and they made reference to ISO standards, which is not a good thing with regards to FDA because they do not accept ISO standards, which is kind of nuts because the rest of the world
that is nuts. Yeah.
And we renegotiated the protocol. They approved it. We did the studies over. They tacked on 3 additional months of the 17.5 month time frame, making it 20.5 months. And finally, they issued the proposed order in December, I think December 11th, last, which was a little bit earlier than we had.
Than you were expecting, right? Yeah.
So it was like a really early Christmas present because we thought it was going to be like the 23rd. And I thought, well, I'm going to be like
2 weeks early, and you were all excited.
Yeah. So I was like, excellent. So we got the proposed order, and everybody, was like flabbergasted. It's like, we had been saying this is coming, right? And here I am saying it's coming. It's finally here. So finally, I'm like, aha, I told you. And everybody is really, it's almost through the comment period, which is next week. And
the comment period finishes next week.
Happens, FDA just reviews that. We have a couple of things that we're providing FDA with in addition, which doesn't affect the date of the hopefully finalization, which if you look at the timeline from the time submission, 17.5 months plus the 3 months, 20, that brings us to June 5th.
Of this year.
More or less. And
Yeah.
that should be the finalization date.
Ah.
And then, in the proposed order, they say, well, it'll be effective 60 days after the finalization date. And we ask them, well, what does that exactly mean? And we're waiting to hear that. But right now, this is moving forward. They're very excited about this because this is the first OMR ever to be done. So there's no precedent that has been established.
Mm-hmm.
The data is spectacular in terms of no carcinogenicity, no developmental reproductive toxicity, no absorption, no dermal effect, no sensitization, no irritation, no allergenicity. And it's not a big environmental issue in terms of safety. So this is now moving forward. We expect that, once the final order is issued, a concurrent USP monograph will be issued. And there'll be, because the OMR has a built-in incentive of 18 months exclusivity for the first ingredient to be approved, that has done the required clinical studies that previously weren't available, we'll get 18 months, and they'll have a process by which they indicate, well, PARSOL Shield, bemotrizinol, 6% max, belong to DSM, is approved and subject to exclusivity. So this is pretty exciting because what this means is finally, after the last filter was approved in 1999,
and what filter was that?
Well, there were two in 99. There was avobenzone, which is a UVA filter.
Right.
And there was also enzulazole. Enzulazole is a water-soluble filter.
Oh, okay.
Those were the last ones that were actually added to the monograph in 99. So there hasn't been anything there for now 26 plus years, right? So this brings forward a new filter that actually was approved globally since 2000, every country in the world, that was safe then and now is demonstrated to be safe again by FDA standards,
right?
With the full, gauntlet of studies that support its safety, which is great. It's the only filter that to have this level of, testing done to, in all aspects, which renders it, something that you can say, wow, finally I can have peace of mind in terms of, this has been fully vetted out. But in addition, it's an advanced solar filter. So it has properties which existing filters don't have, like it's broad spectrum. So currently you have UVA filters, such as avobenzone, and then you have UV filters, which are mostly all the other ones.
The other of the chemical filters on the list of 16, right, in the U.S., 16 approved filters.
Yeah, there are two minerals, zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, and the rest are all chemical.
And zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, and now PARSOL Shield are the only ones that are GRASE approved.
Those would be generally recognized as safe and effective. They call it Category 1 ingredients.
Oh, okay.
By FDA. And that means that there's no further need for testing. They've been demonstrated.
And the others are Category 3?
Category 3, additional data is necessary to determine Category 1, safety and efficacy.
Got it.
And there have been a series of different peer-reviewed journals coming out lately, articles coming out, which have been supporting the safety of those filters, the chemical filters that are commonly used. And FDA is now, as a result of some of the advocacy work that we have done in Congress under the AMUFA 2 OTC monograph user fee program 2.0, which have to renew it every 5 years, has indicated that FDA must, in November of this year, come up with guidelines on non-animal testing for OTC drugs, including sunscreens, and they have to incorporate real-world use data in terms of what other countries' safety experiences are with these filters and other OTC ingredients in their safety assessments, which is a big step forward in terms of hopefully changing the paradigm, which now includes extensive animal testing that must be done, which really aren't necessary because the state of the art within toxicology has advanced so much in terms of in silico modeling, in vitro methods, and mechanistic ways to determine risk that the rest of the world doesn't really need to have animals because they require animal studies because they rely on these new advanced new approach methods methodologies that have been used globally. So hopefully this means that if we can get that change in paradigm, even though FDA says that they can't say that animal testing will go away fully, but if you can demonstrate no exposure, it can eliminate the need for doing a lot of the testing, which is something that we demonstrated by doing our clinical study, which shows no absorption, which then eliminated the need to do that big, systemic carc studies in animals. But there'll still be some need. But we're pushing to get those changes in so we can introduce a lot of the other filters way behind the rest of the world.
Oh, there's more filters potentially to come?
Well, I believe, if you look at the rest of the world, there are over 30 filters that are used globally in different countries, right?
Yeah,
we're
Europe,
down to like 7, right? 7?
Yeah.
Plus 1 now. And only 3 have been fully indicated as being GRASE. So there is a need and this brings back, what this means for us Americans here, which have been deprived for such a long period of time. Now you have a new filter, which is oil-soluble oils. It can be formulated with the existing GRASE filters, titanium and dioxide, because if you're a person of color that has highly melanated skin, you don't want that white stuff to kind of, it's not aesthetic.
That the mineral filters leave.
Goopy,
yeah.
So now you can really formulate some aesthetically pleasing formulas. You can use the mineral filters. You can combine with the existing filters to generate things that people want to use, that they're actually going on the internet and buying from other countries.
That's me.
Because they like how they feel.
Yeah. I want to use Korean sunscreens. I'm sorry.
Because people only use what they like, right? If you don't like, I don't like the way this feels, I'm not going to use it.
Well, I don't know if you and I talked about this, but I had worked on. Are you familiar with the brand Pavis out of MIT? It's they developed a zinc oxide molecule that's fused with diamond powder that allows the sun to reflect off of the molecule so that it doesn't appear, the white cast doesn't appear. And when I was working on that project with them, they had done a study and determined, they had asked consumers why they don't wear sunscreen every day. And it really has nothing to do. Maybe, a lot of people think, of course, that you only need to wear sunscreen at the beach, right? Like, why do I? But the reality is they don't wear sunscreen every day because they hate how it feels on their face. And to your point, we're going to potentially get some products now that people actually like to use, or at least don't feel an aversion to using.
Yeah, I mean, they'll be much more efficient in terms of providing protection across
the broad spectrum thing.
Yeah. The fact is that the daily wear products that go into cosmetic products, which you apply once a day, mostly in the morning when you put on your makeup, but the recreational use product, people don't read the back of the label. It says reapply every 2 hours.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't reapply, and they're like getting burned. It's like, well,
what up? This sunscreen doesn't work.
You didn't reapply it. And they're drugs and not cosmetics. So, there's a lot of education that has to go on, and we're going to hopefully be able to do that with the dermatologists as we move forward with this new filter to kind of change the way that people see sunscreens in terms of how they protect you and how you're supposed to use them.
Yeah. The point you made about them being drugs and not cosmetics, that's the real hindrance, right? Like almost everywhere else in the world, sunscreens are classified as cosmetics, like a moisturizer or a cleanser. And in the United States, they're classified as drugs.
Yeah. And the only place other than the U.S. where they're drugs is Canada and Australia.
Okay.
Those 2 countries have, kind of a drug classification. But the rest of the world is cosmetics.
Yeah.
And because they're cosmetics, there are animal testing bans associated with cosmetics, right?
Right.
But you get to the U.S. and then you have the definition of, well, this is a drug, it's not a cosmetic. Then you have organizations, such as, Leaping Bunny, et cetera, which prohibit the use of animal testing, even because they're considered to be cosmetic. But in the U.S. FDA mandates testing to a certain level because they're drugs. Then that creates a problem because how do you introduce these new innovative technologies that help reduce skin cancer, morbidity, mortality, when you have this issue of a disparity in terms of how they're regulated globally? So there have to be some avenue for accepting the fact, well, FDA considers them to be drug, and they will require some animal testing due to the rigorous requirements that they have. And this doesn't really match the rest of the world. So you have to kind of be able to separate that. And we're calling for, some a call to action to kind of bring this issue up in terms of making people aware, how unfortunate it is. I'm anti-animal testing for sure. And I believe, we can move towards new toxicological principles. But FDA, in its vast knowledge base, does require, because what if you're testing, these are drugs, right? You go to CVS, everything has been tested on it.
Yeah.
And you're confident that they're going to work, that's safe. The warnings are there, you may die, whatever, but they've been tested to a level, at that level, it's safe. And the same thing goes for, sunscreen drugs there. They need to, before, if it's an unapproved drug in the United States, before you can put it on a human, you have to make sure it's safe, right? And the FDA has a paradigm that you have to do that. And until we're able to change that, it's not going to change. So, and we can't afford not to have what the rest of the world has in terms of dirty filters, that are efficient, that are mind blowing in terms of much, generations ahead of what was approved in the 1970s here.
Yeah.
So that's in the works, and we're hopefully move forward with that, with our advocacy with regards to the adaptation of non-animal testing approaches with FDA. But at the same time, right now companies are starting to look at this with open eyes. We've been telling them it's coming, and they're like, oh, it didn't come. What happened? It's like, now it's here.
Right.
It will be here. And they're really excited, and they're starting to figure out, the different formulations, and it's opening.
Oh, they are. They're actually playing around with the filter.
Oh yeah. Remember, this has been approved globally for 20 years, since the year 2000.
Right. Of course. So they can get the raws. They know. Yeah.
European companies, companies in Korea, they've been formulating with this, so they'll probably be, on the market really quick, because once it gets approved under the final order, then you have to go through a couple of hoops in terms of drug listing with FDA and all that good stuff. But then once that the first product that complies with the final monograph orders are on the market, that constitutes, the beginning of a new generation of sunscreen product, which will appear for both daily wear and recreational sun bathing and beach, which will be exciting. And you'll have new forms, and it also is going to be not only the sunscreen monograph going to be updated and amended, but also the skin protectant monograph. And the skin protectant monograph is important because those are the products that use as lip balms.
Right.
And if you make an SPF claim, like you use SPF for your lips so they don't burn.
Yeah.
Those will be now allowed to use PARSOL Shield or bemotrizinol at level 6%. So very exciting. For me, it's like bittersweet because it's been such a long haul. And we told them it was safe in 2005. and here we are in 2026.
Millions of people have been using them around the world since then. Wait, I have a question then. In terms of how soon these products could hit U.S. shelves, say as an example, obviously there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of facial sunscreen products around the world that are formulated with PARSOL Shield. And let's say there's a product in Spain that's made with PARSOL Shield and zinc oxide. That those two UV filters, those two actives are already will be approved in the United States. How soon can that product then be sold in the United States? That specific product.
That specific product will then, as long as they contain ingredients which are currently on the monograph at the levels which are permitted.
Yeah.
That product, as soon as the final monograph is issued and it becomes effective, as soon as that company that makes that product goes through the drug listing process with FDA, basically every OTC drug has to be listed with FDA in order for them to get a new drug code, right?
Mm-hmm.
NDC number.
Yeah.
Because the NDC number helps FDA track where the product came from, should that be a safety concern, and it links it to the manufacturing site, to distributor or manufacturer, and provides a level of assurance in terms of safety throughout the supply chain. Once that company lists that product and provides FDA with the packaging label and the ingredient statement in terms of what actives are in it.
Yeah.
The day that gets into the FDA database is the day that it can be on the shelf. So they have to time. It usually takes about 2 weeks.
Okay.
From the point in time that you submit it to be added, and it's added. And then what you have to do is figure out your logistics, right?
Yeah.
If it's a foreign company, it has to be imported, all that stuff. If it's a domestic company, you have to wait for FDA to actually approve it, and then you can put it into the production process here in terms of manufacturing. But in the meanwhile, today, you can actually, and we do provide samples, do physical chemical testing on stability, as long as you're not testing on humans for the SPF claims efficacy. But you can do those anywhere else in the world where it's approved, because it's approved in Canada,
right?
It's approved in Australia, it's approved in Europe, it's approved in Brazil. You can fast track your formulation work and work on a schedule that complies with FDA requirements, so that when the time does come, you're set.
Yeah.
In terms of having the minimum set of data that's required, as indicated in the proposed order already. So basically, FDA already told companies what needs to be on the label and what you can do, so you can start working on this. And companies are, and that's really exciting, because there hasn't been this level of innovation since 1999, right?
This is 1999.
When we had the last two ingredients. and the cool thing is, PARSOL Shield bemotrizinol stabilizes avobenzone, so you don't have to use other. You have alternatives in terms of which filters to use. It's much more efficient, so you can lower your level of zinc oxide to get a higher SPF in a more aesthetically pleasing formula. So it provides a whole new toolbox for formulators, who are very creative individuals, by the way. To really
well, they've
develop,
had to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they're out there right now, banging on the door. It's like, hey, we need a sample, we need to work on this. When's FDA going to finalize it? And it's coming. Like I said, the 17.5 months plus 3 is June 5th, around there, and then maybe FDA will give us a present, right?
Right.
They surprise us with being early with the proposed order. I don't know. I'll light a couple of candles and see what happens.
Right. Wait, I just have to know, like, you worked inside government, you worked at the EPA. Like, what takes so damn long for something like this to get through? Is it just the way government operates, or was this a special case?
No, this is the way it operates. I mean, and there are safeguards built in. So government isn't meant to act fast.
Mm-hmm.
No. And that's what drove me crazy, because I like to act fast.
Well, yeah.
Right? It's meant to be measured in terms of its decision that it needs to make. All the decisions have to comply with the law. So if the law says, Food and Drug Act says that this is a chronic use ingredient, which 6 months continuous intermittent, and you need chronic data, and you have to develop that. And then if the guidelines say, well, these are the tests that are required, you have to go through each individual test. You have to make sure that they're done in the right way, that they're well controlled, well designed. The protocols, usually you want FDA to indicate that they concur with the protocol and not do the protocol, and then have FDA say, well, you got to repeat that study because we didn't agree
Right.
that protocol. So it takes a measured amount of time to generate the data, and then there's a back and forth, right? So you have to go back and forth with the FDA in terms of communication. So under our process, we had, whenever we had a submission of data, FDA had 30 days to respond.
Oh, okay.
Right. So you have all these like additional, and you don't know this, but to bring a new filter to market today, and we did this piecemeal because a lot of the data was submitted back in 2005, and those were the big carcinogenicity development, which showed no effect. So we didn't have to repeat those because those were legacy studies and they're publicly available. We just had to do everything else that FDA indicated with the gaps. So if you look at the whole scheme in terms of what it takes to bring a new filter, you're talking 10 years plus. You're talking $30 million plus, and that keeps going up every year because, everything gets more expensive. Then you have tack on the fee, which is tied to cost of living, and that goes up. It's almost 600,000 now for this year. It becomes a very expensive endeavor for a company to get a return on investment, especially if you're only getting 18 months of exclusivity, right?
Oh,
18
right.
months of exclusivity is
Yeah.
nothing, right? It takes
For a
18 months to
drug.
create an OTC drug.
Yeah.
And if you look at the RX prescription drugs, they get 5, 6, 7 years, depending on what category they're in, which is much more of an incentive for industry to invest the millions and millions of dollars that need to be invested, because there's a certainty within that period of time that they'll have, a certain amount of exclusivity. And then the patents, right? The patent on this ran out a long time ago. But for new drugs, you get the patents plus the exclusivity. For OTCs, once it becomes USP after the 18 months are over in terms of exclusivity, then as long as any other company in the world that never contributed one penny to any of the safety studies to support its use in human will jump on and say, hey, we can make it cheaper. Buy it from us because we meet the quality and purity standards that have been established by USP, which is really, difficult in terms of, trying to attract investment in a category that deserves, a lot of investment given the impacts on human safety and morbidity and mortality again, and it's a preventive part. So that's the name. That's how it works. So if you can start changing the game in terms of reducing the number of tests based upon, the use of much more sophisticated in silico artificial intelligence driven models. We talk about AI now. Even FDA is incorporating AI, and that's going to just fast track everything. That might shorten the time frame, the need for conducting these long animal studies, which really you don't need because the state of the art is so advanced in toxicology that it's a big heated controversy now in the field whether those big car studies that take 3 years to run are really meaningful enough. And then if we can get away from that, that shortens the timeline, lowers the cost, makes it much more palatable for either one company or a group of companies, consortium, to really pull together and say, hey, we want to bring this new to market. And that's where I think the action is in terms of the future. And we need to continue because having just one filter in 26 years is not the way to do business in terms of public health. And we'll keep moving. And I'm hopefully having opened the door, set the precedents. There are a lot of findings and a lot of learnings that we went through. Having those brought forward and having them be incorporated in terms of new ways of working, I think that's where it's at right now. The learnings need to be incorporated into doing things smarter and faster, because this is all, in the end, about you, me, families, children who are exposed to the sun. And, the sun is, it's great. It feels good, but a little bit too much of it, not such a good thing, unless you have to protect yourself.
Yeah.
So that's the story. I mean, a long haul, finally there. So happy. FDA is ecstatic about it. They're going to toot their horn.
They're ecstatic about approving one UV filter in decades. Is the FDA ecstatic because they think that there's potential to approve more in a quicker time frame, like in the next year, 2 years, 5 years? What are we looking at?
Well, I would say that they're ecstatic about the opportunity now that this represents in terms of showing that they can approve something.
Right.
And I think...
in other words, look, we did approve it. Everybody, come on in. The water's fine.
Pretty much. But, I mean, I give them credit. I mean, they did their job. They're not there to make fast decisions, but this has been pretty measured. This is a very long decision.
Yeah.
But I think it's correct. And I think, this sets a precedence now, given what we have coming in terms of mandates, in terms of guidance for non-animal testing methods, to really do things smarter. And if we can do that, I would say that within the next 5 to 10 years, we might be able to bring in a lot more filters. under a new, more advanced paradigm, which is inclusive of modern toxicological, non-animal, new approach methods, basically.
Yeah.
So it's good, and I think if you don't do this, if somebody didn't do it like we did, it would never have happened.
Yeah.
And we'll still be in the same position in terms of
in 5 or 10 years.
FDA is asking for
Yeah.
data.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have anything new to talk about. So from that perspective, I'm pretty thrilled. Having the luxury of being involved with so many details of it, you get lost in the woods, and now I kind of can see the whole panorama.
Well,
the view.
Yeah. Well, honest to God, thank you, Carl. Like, this is, it's incredible. You made it happen, like, for real. Like, I know there were a lot of players.
It's not me. There's a whole team behind this.
Of course, but your tenacity helped get that over the finish line for real.
Well, that's a Bronx for you. Right?
Is that what it is?
That's actually my mother.
All right, well, give it up to your mother.
The iron will is like
the iron will for sure.
Yeah. But, this is good stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm really happy. Yeah.
I want to move on to what I think is the fun part of the interview. It's the lightning round where we can get a little bit more personal. Just a couple more questions, and then we'll wrap.
All right.
So think about this. Something you believed early in your career that you no longer believe.
Oh gosh. What did I not believe in? I'm in the mindset that if you put your mind to something, it will happen. If I can see it, it will happen. If I can envision something as being there, it will happen. If I cannot envision it, then it's hard for me to see it. And I think if people think this way, if you can put that picture in your mind in terms of what it is that you see as something you're going for, or you're striving for, a goal, you can make it happen. I mean, look at me. I mean, I'm from the Bronx. I came here when I was a year old from Havana. We came with nothing except for my mom. She was a seamstress on 33rd Street in Manhattan. She got remarried. They gave me an education. I used that education wisely, right? I could have gone into banking, or I could have gone to where I went.
Yeah.
If I would have been banking, who knows? I would have been Wall Street, 1980s bull market.
Yeah.
I might be, on an island somewhere right now. But that didn't happen.
with better sunscreens.
But this has been a much more interesting journey, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, doing things that most people don't have the opportunity to do.
Yeah.
And for me, that makes all the difference. A challenge, which, it's there. I can see it. Let's make it happen. So for me, it's that mindset, in terms of if I can see it, it will happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way I'm driven, and I'm not going to change that.
Great. Next, a habit you swear by for staying sharp and focused. If it's cycling, I know you're a long distance cyclist.
I am a cyclist. I'll tell you. So right next to me.
Oh, there's the bike. That's amazing. That
is my therapist.
Yeah, for sure. I feel you. I love it.
Yeah. So I do love that. I have 7 bikes.
7?
7. Yeah. 7. I gotta trim the herd, but they all have different personalities. They have different uses.
Totally. I get it. I'm a cyclist.
So at the same time, I like to do a lot of stuff outdoors. I swim, I play golf, I ski. I'm a risk taker. I've scuba dived all over the world. I'm almost died scuba diving.
Oh my God! Really?
Crazy situations. But having done that, I know what it is to live.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And unless you're on the edge, you're kind of like missing out a lot. But you also get over the edge, and then you're kind of missing out on everything.
It's true.
But yeah, no, I mean, yeah. So maybe who knows? Maybe I'll train for an Ironman or something like that.
Yeah, visualize it.
Why not?
Visualize it, Carl. If you can visualize it, you
I
can
can see
make it
it.
happen. If you could ride
Exactly.
anywhere in the U.S., where would it be? What's your favorite place you've taken the bike?
Oh, well, I've ridden, in the South, in Georgia and
Hmm.
South Carolina, very hilly. San Diego, California is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
Here in Arizona, it's good riding.
yeah.
Um, it used to be, hills were not my friends. And I would suffer immensely because, I'm a big guy and I'm basically a sprinter, so I have a lot of muscle mass.
Mm,
And climbing, requires less weight,
right,
which is
right.
not
That's
in
so
my
true. Yeah,
forte. At least, well, hopefully, I'll get to lower
yeah,
and be a climber. But I think I think where the Meccas right now, Scottsdale is year-round cycling.
yeah.
Boulder, Colorado that's where everybody trains. California, you have year-round. East Coast is much more difficult. There are no bike lanes.
Yeah.
The infrastructure is totally different. But I think Southwest West is kind of where it is.
Have
In
you
terms
ridden
of
in Alaska yet? That's my favorite place I've ever taken the bike.
no, I have not.
It's pretty
I've been to
amazing.
Alaska and I've been to Juneau and I've actually worked there as part of the EPA.
Mm.
And, I've taken propeller planes into small Indian villages, asking them, "What are the impacts of safe drinking water act?" And they're like, "Huh?" But I won't go there. But it is beautiful. There has to be a small cycling period because
It's
it, you know
cold.
I'm riding on 28 millimeter tires, and it's
Yeah.
not you know con- conducive to ice. So, but yeah, anywhere in the world. I mean, I've ridden in Switzerland.
Oh,
I've
wow.
ridden in Germany. You
That's
know,
hardcore.
yeah, and I work for a Dutch Swiss company, right? Dutch, they're crazy about cyclists. You go to
Yeah,
Amsterdam, it's like they have traffic jams with bicycles, and
totally.
people are riding bicycle in high heels and skirts,
The
and,
cycling capital of the
and
world, no doubt.
it's a good vibe, and it makes sense because it gets you to point A to B in a quick way. It keeps you healthy.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of one of my passions in terms of what I enjoy doing a lot of, and I go out with a lot of people and have fun. Yeah, so it's kind of cool.
Last, last two questions. The best advice you ever got from a mentor.
Oh, the best advice. Wow, I've had some good mentors, and the best advice I've gotten from a mentor is your integrity is everything you have, and the
Mm,
trust that you build is what other people see in you in terms of as a leader. You have trust and integrity. And for me, I have a lot of that, which has been built over a period of time. Just because, I play it straight. I I indicate what the issues are from a balanced point of view. And I think people listen to that because if you go extremes, you kind of, being biased in a way. And I try to avoid the bias and I try to weigh the bias in a way that balances it out. And that gives me a lot of credibility because I'm kind of a perfectionist at heart in terms of doing things that are right in the right way, but having that integrity, that trust, and bringing it forward to other people so they can learn from that. That's the most important advice that I've gotten from mentors that have been really truly great in terms of doing amazing things, and there aren't many of them. I can
yeah.
probably say two people. But yeah, so that's probably it. And people come to me because they trust me, and they know that I'm not going to color code something. I'm going to give it straight, and shooting straight is all it's all about for me.
And what would you say the best advice you've ever given is? Are you paying it forward?
You can be whatever you want to be.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You don't hold back. Don't listen to other people. You just If you want to do something, you go for it and do it, because nobody's going to stop you except for yourself. And there are points in life where there's some rejection, there's some downsides, but you keep going, keep that positive flow going. And if somebody gives you a negative, move away from that and go to something that gives you energy for you to be able to give that back in a positive way.
Incredible. Well, thank you, Carl. This is great. And congratulations. And on behalf of all Americans, thank you for your tenacity.
Namaste, right?
Yes.
No, this is good. This is good for all Americans, and we deserve it. I mean, we shouldn't be not getting what the rest of the world has. I think this is the first step.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thanks so much, Carl.
All right, Carmine. Pleasure. You take care and have a great rest of the week. Take care.
Bye.
Ciao.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Skincarma Pod. Find more insights, real talk, and reviews of my favorite skincare products on the Skincarma blog at skincarma.com. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please rate and review this episode. It helps me to reach more listeners. Ciao.